you so much for making time to be with us today.
Thank you, Julie.
Let's get straight into the issue. Now, I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this whole plan was devised to enable children perhaps from less privileged homes who don't have many options to have a way out. Now, considering the controversy, is there another way that we could handle this?
Well, I want to first start by just clarifying the facts. We had 14% of the candidature of last year exam coming from private schools and 86% coming from public schools.
86%.
86%. And the way we shared 4,000, about 500 positions, roughly 30% of the positions went to students who came from private primary schools, and 70%. So it's not even 90. First of all, let's get the statistics right. And in addition, this policy did not apply to top provincial schools. So who took most of the positions in the top schools that you know, provincial schools like Precious Blood, Ruta, Ngandu Girls, Kapsabet Boys, Friends Boys, Kamusinga, they were taken purely on competitive basis.
Let's talk about the national schools.
Yeah, the national schools, the number of children from private schools that took places are between 1,200 and 1,500, because there are some schools like Stare that have exclusive authority to select students on the basis of poverty, where they come from. And the number from public schools are about 3,000. But we're talking about 3,000 from a population of 86% of 745,000, and 1,500 roughly from a population of about 107,000 from private schools. So in our view, we believe very, very strongly that it was the right thing to do. We were being equitable. We want to have a society which is inclusive. Social inclusion is very important, and the only way you can achieve it is through education. However, in terms of way forward,
yes, and let me just ask this as you go to way forward, because of course, you know, the truth is even at primary school level, there are people who are not in public schools who are in underprivileged schools, so they may be called private schools, and yet
there is really no clear way of deciding who is where. I think our job, and then the spirit of the new constitution, is that have an inclusive society, integrate our society. The child in Ortum should have just as a chance, as good a chance as a child in Eldoret Town.
Absolutely.
And so it is even in Nairobi here. And I want you one of these days to visit to see the so-called informal schools in Gorogosho and Kibera slums. And
I have.
Yes, and you can see the mess there.
Yes.
So what we are saying is that we are not all the same, but the policy of government must be to try and give the Kenyan children, irrespective of where they come from, an opportunity to believe in their country, an opportunity even to break the circumstances that place them where they are.
To break the cycle of poverty.
The cycle of poverty. We need to come out of that and give them a chance. And what we want to do, the solution really is not to fight over 4,000 places in our national schools. As a ministry, there are three key goals that the government must focus on. Number one, access. Access meaning that we want every child in this country to access education. Number two, equity, meaning that boys, girls, very different parts of the country, again, access national or even private institutions. And thirdly, quality. We must make sure that this education is of quality. Now, to do this, the government has brought in a number of strategies. One of them is there's a massive injection of capital. Right now, we're spending about 6.3 billion in what we are calling economic stimulus program. In every constituency, a secondary school is given 30 million, and one primary school is given 3.5 in every constituency in Kenya. It is a way to make sure we lift up these schools to a level that we can achieve that quality we're talking about, and also expand the facilities. And it is not that it is going to be that one school in the constituency. The idea is that as we get more resources, we lift up schools until we feel that there's a critical mass of public national institutions that these children can access. So if we do this, the other strategy would be, and we are already into this, the other strategy is that we want to identify 2 schools in every county. There are 47 counties, 1 for boys and 1 for girls. And then we want to gazette these schools. We try to build up the infrastructure, harmonize, and gazette them so that they become national schools. And then we can agree, for example, we can say 30% of admissions should come from the county and 70% comes from all over Kenya. And if we can do this year, next year, the number of children that will be going to institution called national will be huge.
Right, and that deals with access.
It's an access thing.
Right.
And then quality.
Yes, and quality as well. So right now, parents should be looking out to where the money is going.
Yes.
Which schools in your constituency have been given funds to upgrade, uplift? Please find out and watch how that money is
and whether that money is properly used.
Absolutely.
I had a chance to talk to DOs recently, all of them from across the country, and I told them it is their business now to really open their offices to the public so that they can get feedback on what's going on in our primary schools, in our secondary schools, because there are a lot of issues.
And I hope the ministry itself is involved in auditing the funds and the use of the funds. And
well, we do random checks and we respond whenever we receive complaints. But we have, in this case, for example, 20,000 primary schools. It doesn't matter what I do. I will never visit all of them.
Okay.
But we have a team that tries to respond to these issues. But the best person to do this is the district education officer. And my message to the public is if you have issues, even before you bring them to the ministry, go to the district education officer and see whether or not that problem would not be addressed. If it is not,
take it to the ministry. Yes, if it is not
good.
good. Now, I'm going to move away from this issue slightly because there's a critical issue happening. Even as we watch the politicians realigning this week, even as we talk about education, we have fellow Kenyans who are starving in this country. You are a professor of environment. You are also a leader whose name I have heard coming up as one of the possible alternative leaders of this country. As a leader already and as a PS, I'm going to throw this at you. What can be done in this country once and for all to end the food insecurity situation? Why are we locked in this cycle?
Julie, what we're going in through is very, very disturbing. Disturbing because we seem to be caught in a cycle that when the rains come, the floods sweep our cows and destroy property. And when the drought comes, then we are in a mess that we are in now. I want to tell you this. We are not going to run away from the climatic changes that are taking place all over the world. There is something called climate change. And climate change is just unpredictable weather conditions. Too much rainfall, too much drought, and they come at the time when you don't expect. So what we need to do, in my view, the first thing is that Kenya, the country called Kenya, 20% roughly, is what you might call high agricultural land, conducive for rain-fed agriculture. 80% roughly is arid and semi-arid, which means you cannot really do reliable agriculture unless you do irrigation. In my view, the first thing we need to do is to make sure we intensify production in this small land area, the 20%, and make sure we give the farmers incentives, and this can be anything from fertilizers to opening up roads so that they can take their food to the market, and that they know if I invest, I will reap from my sweat. Number 2, we must develop a very efficient storage and distribution system. Because as I talk to you right now, there are some parts of this country, like where I come from, it's raining and there's a lot of food in the shambas, and there are other parts of Kenya where there's no food. We need to be able to have ways of bringing food from parts of the country where there's food and taking it to easily and efficiently through a very efficient distribution system and storage. Thirdly, I think we need to tap the rains that come so that when it rains, instead of the floods killing people, we construct strategic dams in various catchments of the country, collect that water, and then using technology, and we have it in our own country, we plant short rotation crops, and within no time, within 3 months, we can harvest more food than we can ever handle in this country.
Can you believe I have to stop you there? But thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
If you are a parent, if you are a student, find out, is there money being sent to your school for upgrading? How is that money being used? But also, you've heard it right here, that there are ways to deal with the problems that we have of food insecurity. We need to start dealing with it seriously.